Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to this special broadcast by FNA and Proto. Consumer fraud and scams have become one of the defining risks of the digital economy. In 2023, more than 1 trillion US dollars were stolen through scams and online fraud. A reminder that the faster money moves, the faster it can disappear. While digital payments have delivered speed and inclusion, they have also introduced new vulnerabilities. Victims, for example, often have no clear path to report incidents, and institutions struggle to coordinate a response across multiple systems and jurisdictions. Today's discussion explores a different approach, one that connects citizens, banks, and regulators in real time to detect, trace, and recover stolen funds before they vanish. Our focus is Trust at Speed, a national utility for scam reporting and fund tracing, a joint initiative by FNA and Proto, and a finalist in the G20 TechSprint 2025 on fraud and cyber risk mitigation. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Amanah Ramadiah, and I'll be guiding our conversation today. Together, we'll ask a central question. Why is a national scale end-to-end response to scams needed now more than ever? To set the stage, let's begin with question 1. I will start with Kimo on the background or the why. So Kimo, fraud and scams have existing as long as finance itself. We know about it, and yet their scale and speed have transformed dramatically, especially now. So from your vantage point working with payment infrastructures worldwide, what has changed so far? And why do you see the need for a coordinated national utility at this moment?
Thanks, Amy, and great to be here today on this very important topic. I think I've been scammed once in the last 2 weeks and frauded twice. So now I have also a lot of personal experience from the victim side. I think it's a massive problem pretty much across the world. I've been talking with central bankers and authorities from over 60 countries, and pretty much everyone says that it's a massive issue today in their countries, and that it's a priority topic for them. I think what has changed so that this is the case is that there's been a lot of work on financial inclusion and digitization of payment systems, making payment systems more accessible, digital payments more affordable across large populations. And that has brought a large number of new people into the realm of digital payments, which is, of course, a great thing. But then it also comes with risks because they might be quite vulnerable to scams. It's the industrial scale of the scams. We learn more and more how these are operated by transnational criminal syndicates. It's the most profitable business line today, and they are learning to be better at it. I think those are one. The victim is different, and that's why it also feels different. Not the scale of the actual problem, but it also feels bigger because previously, let's say you had some fraudulent transactions on your credit card, you would call the credit card company. You would be pretty certain that you would get the money back, and the eventual victim would have been then maybe the merchant or the merchant's bank, and sometimes the issuer's bank. But in these type of new scams, and I use scam as a word for where actually you make the payment, sort of authorized push payment fraud, it's also called. Unlike fraud where someone hacks into your accounts or does unauthorized things with your card or your bank account. So in the scams, the victim is usually the individual. And individuals, of course, feel it much more emotionally. For businesses, it's a business as like operating expense, like it's a little bit more expensive to operate in that area, but for individual it feels very different, and therefore like I think it's societally much more damaging than the fraud, let's say, that we had before. And maybe the third one is the widespread use of AI, and more large language models that are specifically trained for fraudulent use cases. I'm from Finland, and I was speaking with the Finnish authorities a while back, and they said that scams had tripled last year, probably mainly driven by the fact that that criminals from all over the world now can speak Finnish, which is a very difficult language. So I think that's something that we really need to keep an eye on also for the future, because I don't think we've felt the full force of that yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much, Kimo. I think if I may summarize, then there are three reasons from your perspective, right? So it's the innovation on the instant payments, financial inclusion as well, and the victim is different today, as well as AI and LLM innovation that happened so far. So I think I will go to Curtis next. So Curtis, from your point of view, as Proto operates as at the front line of citizen engagement, especially for incident reporting, for example, what patterns are you observing from consumers themselves, and what's driving the demand, in your opinion, for a more accessible, also immediate channel to report scams?
Yeah, thanks, Amy, for the question, and thanks to the FNA team for organizing the discussion today. So Proto is on the front lines. We operate AI-based financial consumer complaint systems in countries like the Philippines and Rwanda. These systems capture everything from scam reports to negative customer experiences to terms of service violations. If we take the Philippines, for example, about 17% of all of the complaints that we process are scam or fraud related. They're often referencing unauthorized transactions explicitly. Of those, about 47% involve e-wallets and mobile money services, which are the same digital tools that are designed for financial inclusion. They're now being repurposed as primary vehicles for scams. About half of those cases involve amounts of around 10,000 Philippines pesos, which is approximately close to the country's average monthly wage. So that shows how deeply these losses are affecting low-income citizens, unfortunately. Beyond those numbers, the complaints that we handle for regulators, they reflect an overwhelming sense of helplessness when digital financial services fail to respond. And these are just the people who manage to file reports. Many simply give up, and they lose trust in the formal financial system altogether. I should mention as well that a particular focus for Proto this year is around 1/3 of all the complaints that we process are from consumers in a senior age demographic, and they're the ones typically communicating the highest sentiment around distress. So this is due perhaps to limited familiarity with payment apps, also the importance of their savings for retirement, healthcare, family support, etc. So what we want to do is make sure that we take in these complaints as fast as possible. At the same time, we recognize that consumers often go through a period of shock or embarrassment, and they fail to report their scams in a timely manner. So AI agents, if deployed correctly, can be a very interesting tool. In response to all of this, Proto is really focused on making the AI complaint channels more accessible and immediate, adding voice support for local languages like Tagalog or Kinyarwanda. And we also want to integrate this technology into national scam hotlines to close those manual gaps. The AI agents can work 24/7 through popular messaging apps. They don't entail the high cost of running an anti-fraud call center. Ultimately, and what we'll talk about here today, I trust, is our objective remains to connect the AI agent systems into fraud and fund tracing systems, so that as quickly as possible within that window period of 24 hours, we can hopefully get the scam funds back for consumers.
Yes, thank you very much, Curtis. Thank you as well for describing some of the statistics, which is very sad to me, right? I also understand that scammers usually targeted vulnerable people, especially those people who don't really have good financial literacy, for example. And but when you describe about the fact that they targeted senior citizen, I remember about my mother who recently just almost got scammed, and well, thanks God that it didn't happen. But now back to your point, you described briefly about how Proto then has been trying to help citizens to collect in a more automatic and more efficient manner to collect the case incident that they just experienced, right? I think now maybe after discussing about the background, we can then talk about the solution, right? I will begin with Curtis. Can you again describe maybe in more detail how Proto's multilingual AI reporting system works in practice? It would be interesting to hear from you as well. How does it enable victims to report fraud discreetly and in their own language as well? Potentially maybe even through channels that is easily accessible by them through WhatsApps or SMS, for example. Maybe you can tell us a bit about it.
Sure. So everyone listening probably has used ChatGPT or chatbots in some way or the other. So essentially, we're using that kind of chat interface to collect consumer complaints as quickly as possible. What we don't want to do is deploy systems that are like a web form and require a copious back and forth for citizens to actually lodge complaints. We want to just take in whatever data we can. So using natural language processing for local languages and mixed languages in these markets, we're actually able to take in rather emotional, complex complaints that are naming businesses, they're naming dollar amounts. We're able to quickly map that into a complaint architecture and then lodge that within a central bank system, for example. Every deployment's a little bit different, aligning with the national regulations. So in Rwanda, for example, the system's deployed across over 500 financial institutions on the front line. So right on the bank websites, consumers can complain. In other countries, it's through, in the Philippines, for example, Facebook Messenger is the main channel through which we get the complaints. So that's a quick overview of how we ingest that information within the lens of anti-scam, right? So around 20% of all the complaints that we process are explicitly tied to fraud or scams. That usually goes through a national system. So cybercrime centers, it's usually referred through emails. There's a lot of inefficiencies in that, which an integrated anti-scam center could actually solve. So connecting that complaint data right into a fraud tracing and freezing system has a lot of promise.
Yes, thank you very much. And I totally agree as well, especially if we are talking about a scam victim who just get scammed or defrauded. Usually they are in a weak psychological position, right? So yeah, I think what you just described on how Proto can provide a technology for them to be able to report the incident they just experienced in a very easy and quick way is very much benefit to the society. I think I'm going to move now to Kimo. You touched a bit, Curtis, about the fact that once the scams report has been collected, the next is then how to trace and track the stolen funds more automatically and then also more effectively. Now I'm going to move to Kimo. I think continuing to what Curtis just briefly mentioned at the end of his discussion, right? Could you walk us through how FNA's money trails system traces and then also maps stolen funds across banks and payment rails in real time?
Sure, but maybe just on the reporting first. So I had unauthorized transaction on my credit card last week, actually also another card the week before. So those were the two fraud cases that I had. And what I found cumbersome was actually I was abroad, so I had to call the bank and have these roaming charges and hang on the line for half an hour. What I would really have liked to do is actually just quickly, chat with a bot and give the evidence and have them, take it forward from there. So that would have been my favorite way of reporting these incidents. But yeah, so what happens then? Not necessarily card fraud, but maybe talk more about the instant payments related scam cases. You said that it's cross-bank and cross-rail, and those are important aspects. So the tracing takes place mostly today, let's say, in most countries, which haven't set up these utilities yet, sort of national anti-scam utilities, is that the bank maybe informs the next bank, because once you get scammed, the criminals use mule accounts to quickly move the money from one account to another account. Before it was quick to do instant payments, they would do this inside the bank, because inside the bank it was quick to move monies around. The banks learned to then track these funds inside the bank's own accounts. But then when these instant payment systems became more widely available, the criminals learned that, okay, if I move the money from the original bank to the next bank, it will be very slow for the banks to coordinate and tell each other bilaterally, hey, can you go and check this transaction? and then they would very quickly, maybe within seconds or minutes, move it 3 hops further, and then pretty much be certain that it's impossible for the industry or the banks or the wallets to trace that and freeze those funds, so the criminals consider them safe. So what these utilities do is they trace it across different banks and across different rails automatically, in really instantly when the fraud is reported. There might be a long lag before the scam is reported, but immediately when it's reported, that we look at all the payments that have been made between the banks and the different payment means, and consolidate this picture of the money trail, and then alert the banks in parallel immediately, so as to get quicker to the end of the trail where the money is sitting, and be able to still find it in the banking system before it goes out in crypto or in cash, or it's moved abroad, which is now the next sort of frontier. But there's a moment of time when we can still find it in the domestic banking system, and that's I think the fundamental capability is to be able to trace these funds, because then you can freeze them before they go out, and they can still be returned to the victim. Maybe it's not immediate, and maybe it takes a while for the return of the funds, but at least they are frozen. And but you also then identify a lot of mule accounts in the process when you investigate every incident systematically and at scale. You identify a lot of mule accounts, and then you can use this information to prevent, or banks can use this information to prevent making payments to suspected or known mule accounts. So then you get into the preventive fraud detection very quickly from the fundamental capability of being able to trace and freeze the funds.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you also touch a very important point, right? What has happened so far is that scammers and fraudsters are taking leverage and advantage of how different payment rails, and also how different financial institutions are interconnected. So they usually can now they can do onward milling activities very quickly. However, the initiative taken by different institutions are done at silo, meaning we know that banks, for example, have deployed potentially good anti-fraud solutions, but no one really look into how to do the trace and then also track the stolen funds in a more systematic way, such that they would be able to automatically trace where the stolen funds has been gone so far. I think one point that I would like to make as well, because you just provided a few examples of the real scam experiences you have recently, Kimo. I hope that you are recently speaking to a lot of anti-fraud and anti-scams events. Doesn't make you a #1 target of those scammers. So they're trying to talk to you.
So I think the reason I also say it is because #1 issue with these scams is that people are afraid of telling about them. So they are hugely unreported because people don't report them. And then because they don't report them, that information or intelligence is not available for the industry to use. And many times people don't report it because they blame themselves for being scammed. And I guess it's my fault. It was not the scammer's fault. So I think sort of to just get that stigma out a little bit, that it's a good thing to report it.
Yes, that's a very good point of view, actually. So everyone has, I've been working on this topic as well for quite some time now, but I've been scammed as well in my life, right? So everyone has been scammed. So don't worry if you have been scammed as well. So yeah, thank you, Kimo, for the important message. I think I will now move to a bit more into the practical details with respect to the how of the technology and governance, right? We have here Wei Ying, Proto's Chief Technology Officer. So Wei Ying, would be nice to hear from you from a technical perspective. What ensures the security, scalability, and data sovereignty of this architecture, especially given its national scale ambitions?
So, yep, we have worked closely with a lot of government officers and government agencies, and that's the first question that they will ask us, like, what's the security measures and where the data is stored. So, for our architecture, we have designed it from the ground up to meet these three requirements: the security, the scalability, and the data sovereignty. So, on security side, all components are deployed within a secure government approved cloud environment or on-premise environment. Means that as long as the agencies can host their own server, we can easily run the system on their server. And depends on different jurisdiction needs. So if you have cloud hosted, then you can actually select which region that all this data can be stored, or on-premise will be locally hosted on your on-premise server. And we use end-to-end encryption and role-based permission to ensure that all sensitive information include consumer information, so any transaction metadata is going to be stored and protected within every layer. And for transparency, so anyone who log in the system, who file a complaint, who have done anything on the platform will be logged, and it's auditable on the platform. So the super admins can just trace back who has actually has the access or access the data source. And in terms of scalability, so the system is built with the microservices architecture. So it allows the components such as the fraud detection model, the case management, or any API connectivity to be scaled independently. So as we know that on a national level, the transaction volumes can be going to from a few reports to a few thousand reports daily or hourly. So the scalability will allows this real-time reporting to be run without any downtime, and the ecosystem to be grow if we would like to include more agencies or more banks into the platform. Okay, and the third will be the data sovereignty. So we know financial data is very, very sensitive data. And we need to make sure that all data that is stored and are processed within the country borders based on the jurisdiction and align with the local data protection laws. So any data that requires to be cross-border if there's any sharing required from the authorities. So we will tokenize or mask those information so that we make sure that no personal information from the consumers is being shared, but the intelligence can still be shared among the agencies. Yep. So these are all the measures that are being set up on the platform to make sure that the data we store is secure and it's scalable for any requirements from the agency.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wei Ying. It's very good to hear that the platform is secure. It's also scalable as well as it's preserved the data sovereignty of each jurisdiction that would like to deploy such technology, right? So now from Wei Ying, I would like to move to Kimo again. I think the question would be for you, Kimo, since money trails usually involve tracing stolen funds, meaning there will be financial transaction data involved, right? And if we are not only talking about one bank, we are talking about cross banks and potentially also cross financial institutions, as well as there are some agency regulators that may also involve here. How does FNA's governance model then allow these multiple institutions, banks, payment system operators, law enforcement to collaborate securely without centralizing sensitive data?
Sure. So first of all, I think most countries, there needs to be legislation in place that allows financial institutions to share fraud information with each other or share information to counter fraud and scams. And a lot of countries have either done this recently as part of AML legislation that's been put in place over the last several years. But several countries have also been doing this very proactively with fraud and scams in mind, like
Maybe there could be some problems with Kimo's internet. Kimo, are you still here? Hi, Kimo. Are you back?
Yes, I think there was a glitch in the internet.
No problem. I hope it's not the issue that was experienced this week globally.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty close to the Red Sea cable cuts, so.
And I hope it's not a
scammer.
scammer
The reason. Sorry?
I hope it's not a scammer who just hijacked your connection.
No, yeah.
This is still real Kimo, right?
Fake
Not
it,
your
no.
deepfake. Okay.
So I was saying that you usually, in order to operate a sort of a cross-bank or cross-institution track and tracer, you need a change in law, and many countries have done this as part of AML legislation in the past, and many countries, even in the last year, have changed legislation to allow for financial institutions to share fraud data among each other. And actually, the data sharing is very minimal because you just need to send a signal saying that, hey, there's a link between this payment or this account and something that the receiving bank received. And then you can start actually the trail building from that. And it's more the automation that helps put it all together, and the speed. And that's why also the proposition with Proto is that because we want to increase the speed at which everything happens. The funds across the whole trail, and then alert everyone very quickly to take action. And there's different sort of data architectures how you can do that. You could centralize the data. That's something that some countries are doing. They're centralizing it into a fraud database, all the transaction level information, and then our software sits on top of it to create the trails in real time. In other countries, we have more distributed architectures where, let's say, different switches, different banks, different participants install software, and then through APIs we coordinate and build the full picture very rapidly. So usually the technology is not the impediment. It's mostly the legal side. So there are countries where you cannot share any data by the bank with the banks with each other yet, but I think many of those are learning that you need to do that. Then you usually need a regulation, usually maybe by an authority, financial authority, to say that, hey, for this purpose, please do share the data because you're allowed to do it, and we're expecting you to do so. And then you need standard operating procedures for everyone to together put the system together.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's also great to hear from you that the technology is quite flexible with respect to the architecture, depending on how the jurisdiction would like to set up their architecture, right? You mentioned like one country would like to have a centralized system architecture in a way, but for some other countries that might not be possible given the data security law, as well as, like, for example, from where I am now. So everyone, I'm based in Indonesia, and here we have like quite complex payment system landscape. We have like 4 big payment switches, for example, 1 faster payment system. And in this case, it will be difficult then to just have a fully centralized architecture. And I think what Kimo just mentioned previously, just before, about having it deployed in a distributed manner where data resides where it is, and then have it deployed, have the solution or money traps deployed and can call each of the distributed software or services separately will be a very good solution to that type of complex architectural landscape. All right, now we have talked about why, and then also what and how. I think we can now move into the
FNA and Proto have partnered to propose a national utility for scam reporting and fund tracing, operated by a central infrastructure like payment system operators or regulators, and used together by banks, law enforcement, and financial intelligence units. The solution uses Proto's AI complaints management system to enable discrete, inclusive scam reporting in local languages for countries such as Malaysia, Rwanda, and the Philippines, with text and voice messaging through channels like WhatsApp, Messenger, and SMS. These convenient agents overcome the availability challenges of manual call centers and the overlooked problem of victim embarrassment. The agents collect essential information, such as bank account details, nationality, ID type and number, email address, incident date, attachments, the scammed amount, and the currency. After the rapid reporting, the agent can transfer victims to the responsible agency. This allows the victim to track the investigation and monitor the fraudulent fund tracing process, all within the same chat interface. The scam report is instantly lodged within Proto's platform for continuous messaging and analysis. And the scam details are sent to the FNA money trail system, along with a scam report summary for rapid analysis. The report is validated, prioritized, and prepared for investigation, with live updates sent to the scam victim. The money trail system traces the stolen funds in real time, mapping the movement across payments and bank accounts. The system alerts the relevant banks simultaneously, which enables them to freeze suspicious accounts within seconds. This combination of AI agent and fund tracing technology offers the fastest solution for protecting defrauded financial consumers.
Yes, thank you for the video. We just have watched a short demonstration of a video that's showing how the integration system, both between Protos and FNA, operates from the moment of a scam occurs to the real-time tracing of funds. So I'm going now to have a follow-up questions to Kimo. I think we just saw the rapid tracing of money trails, Kimo. How do you think it differ from legacy call center or manual coordination processes compared to the one that we just saw together?
I think quite a few countries have already set up maybe bilateral information sharing systems with banks. Some countries have set up co-located centers. And I think these are all good things because what the technology then does is just makes these more efficient and faster, and ability to do things at larger scale. So if you rely on manual processes, you need to increase staff, or maybe there isn't enough staff to handle all the cases, and the effectiveness is not so high because it slows down things. So what we're trying to do here is to build specialized technology to cover the whole chain from fraud reporting to the tracing of the funds and the response by the case officers of the banks to make them really more efficient. So in countries where we operate, some of the numbers like 75% reduction in the case closure times, for example. So that means that maybe you can do 4 times more cases with the same people than you would before. And I think this is only the start, because most of these systems are built as phased-in deployments, where we start with something today, and then we have a roadmap of how do we improve the system, scale it up, make it faster, make it more efficient, introduce AI models. I think there's a question there. I don't know if I can take it. Are there safeguards to avoid malicious reporting of genuine numbers or accounts? Yes, exactly, because that's one part of the process of automatically using AI and machine learning models to score incident reports, so that some can go directly into investigation without any human intervention, and others that look more suspicious, maybe a human looks at it. So these are little pieces along the whole chain where we're using AI and models and automation and specialized technology to make it an industrial scale response to an industrial scale problem.
Yes. Thank you. I think I'm going to quickly move to Curtis. So Curtis, can you walk us on what happens behind the scenes from the video that we just saw together when the complaint message comes in?
Sure, yeah. So what you saw in the video was just a dialogue happening. So that's the complaint survey that's being done. Once we do generate that complaint, so we know the value, we know the name of the complainant, the bank details, etc. We then map that into either our own complaint management system or the system that's being used by the regulator or the central bank. Importantly, though, there's jurisdictional overlaps and nuances in each country. So sometimes a complaint comes into a government agency and it's determined later that they don't have jurisdiction. And then the complainant is told to go somewhere else, go to their financial institution, go to a different regulator. And by then it's right a week, 2 weeks, maybe months later. There's no way that the scam funds are ever going to be recovered with that kind of manual delay. So what we're working on right now is a unified architecture across regulators and government agencies where the AI system also correctly categorizes the complaint, and we automatically refer that conversation in real time to the right regulator's AI agent or a customer support system. So there's an immediate switch that happens in the dialogue to continue the complaint conversation right where it left off, but with the right regulatory authority that has the power to save weeks or months in this whole process. Once we do have that complaint, it can then be forwarded off to financial institutions for input. It can be sent off to police, perhaps, and then, of course, to systems like FNA to actually trigger the fund tracing and freezing.
Yes, thank you very much, Curtis. I think now we talk about the solution, how it looks like, right? We just saw the short demonstration demo as well of how the integration can be important. I think let's move to impact and evidence now. I think both of you potentially, the solution that you just mentioned have been put into production as well. And it would be nice to hear from both of you the story of each, as well as some of the good KPI that the jurisdictions have achieved by deploying such technology. I will maybe start with Kimo. You've now seen the platform in operation in various countries. Could you share the measurable outcomes from one of the country where you recently deploy in terms of cases handled, for example, fund recovery rates, and then also operational efficiency?
Yeah, I think the key KPI is really the amount of funds that have been intercepted or frozen, because that's a clear numeric value. And before countries set up any centers, they usually have 0 or 0.5% freezing rates. In Malaysia, where we've helped Paynet and Bank Negara deploy this, they have now, in 21% of the cases that are promptly reported, they can freeze the whole fraud amount. So all the money is 100% freeze rate for those promptly reported cases. If you and those are the ones that you would probably, if you had a manual scam center, you would probably focus on only those. But in total, for the others, we can still also they can freeze some 25% maybe of the funds. So I think these are quite different scale numbers. So maybe 50 times more, maybe more than when you don't have any coordinated response, or when you have a coordinated response but it's manual. You get very quickly very large benefits on the magnitude of funds frozen. The other one is, which I think is very interesting to the financial institutions, is that it really helps their work. Something that they used to do manually, they can now rely more on technology and automation. So with the same people, they can just do more. And when I talk with banks and fintechs, they say that they're just overwhelmed by the magnitude of cases, and they need to hire more people, or if they would be able to rely on technology, they would be much more efficient and have better customer service. Their clients would be happier. So I think those are sort of the main immediate impacts of the track and trace. And then I think the follow-up ones are that people start reporting more. Once they learn that, hey, there's a chance for me to get my money back, you'll actually do the report and take the effort to report the scam. So then we get more visibility of the what type of scams are out there, so that we can design the educational campaigns better to target the new scams, and police and law enforcement know better what is going on. I think that's sort of like an immediate follow-up step from that. and then we gather a lot of labels. In AI models, we talk about labeled data. We gather a lot of how does fraud look like, so we can train models to identify more of the same from all the data. So it really improves our capabilities to build more advanced features when we just have this good handle in a systematically collected database of fraud. And then we can immediately use that also, like I said also before, about the identification of the mule accounts and sharing that information, sharing other fraud information across the banks. So it just has multiple stakeholders. Supervisors get more real-time information directly from the utility, or can get. There's lots of stakeholders that benefit from the utility in any country. And then next step, we want to start connecting this together, because in many countries the fraudulent funds, they leave the country. But if there's more collaboration and systematic exchange of information between the national scam utilities, we can also tackle that as a next step.
Yes, which is very encouraging, right? You mentioned like several, some of the advantages and KPI that one can achieve by deploying such technology. I think especially from the victim perspective, the reason why I didn't report the scam that happened to me 2 or 3 years ago, because I didn't think that the money will be returned back to me. There is no way that I can get the money back. So why should I actually spend time to report it, right? But seeing that there are some chance that that money can then be returned to me, it's really encouraging from the consumer perspective. So thank you for sharing that statistics, Kimo. So now move to Curtis. So the same type of questions, Curtis. So Proto's deployments with several jurisdictions and institutions have shown significant citizen engagement. And what have you learned about accessibility and inclusion from these experiences?
Yeah, so there's 3 overall findings. The first is that digital proximity really matters. Over 86% of all the complaints that we process or observe are submitted digitally, mostly through chat or emails, showing that citizens expect to resolve their financial issues instantly and conversationally. So using the same methods and tools that they use for their financial services, they want to resolve scam reports or complaints the same way. Second is that language and tone are typically barriers to inclusion. Many Filipinos, for example, in the Philippines, report their incidents in Taglish, which is a mix of English and Tagalog, or various regional dialects. And these complaints often have emotional or indirect language. So by training the AI agents to understand and respond empathetically in the local language, using the same type of expression styles, we can overall build consumer trust and start to take in more complaints. There's word of mouth referrals for the system that also increase accessibility. And then there's also the issue we've been touching on today around embarrassment. It's likely underreported, but people who are in shock or embarrassed about losing money, they don't want to talk to a stranger about that, at least immediately. And time is of the essence in solving these scams. So making a discreet, anonymous sort of whistleblowing channel, an AI agent or chatbot available, can help us address that issue. And then third is around the demographics, which do shape vulnerability. So women make up 59% of all the complaints that we process in our countries. And a third of all those cases are coming from older consumers. And they're the ones, as I mentioned, who are expressing the greatest distress around scams. They have the least digital confidence. So those insights have led us to start adding voice-based reporting for elderly, low literacy users, and the option for family members to complain on behalf of each other. Of course, with the voice-based channels, there's a limitation around doing voice AI for low-resourced or underserved languages. So we have to do the fundamental data collection, annotation, and training for these systems.
Yes, thank you very much, Curtis, for sharing that. I think I'm going to move to Kimo again. So we heard about some of the impact KPIs as well as how the technology looks like, Kimo. So what do you think makes this joint approach by FNA and Proto a genuine breakthrough? And why this is not a rather an incremental improvement?
Well, I think it's because we're building a very integrated end-to-end system that there hasn't been anything around it. Actually, there hasn't been a lot of the individual components either out there. and I think putting them together in a problem that is becoming or is already a very large global problem, and having an integrated, well thought out solution to counter that is something that that just isn't out there.
Yes, I totally agree. I think looking at your individual description on how each of the solution looks like in practice, it's already a novelty, right? Because it's an innovation already and brings a lot of benefits to the society, especially on the anti-scam and anti-fraud initiative. Now, combining the two solutions into one, from the incident reporting until the fund tracing, will also obviously another important innovation that one can also do to even speed up.
And maybe to mention it that it's not the full solution. I think it's a starting point. I think there are a lot of other companies out there providing different pieces of the puzzle, and I think we welcome everyone to sort of like to this collaborative effort to bring their expertise and bring their technology that can be plugged in into these national utilities, as you know, like the roadmap progresses and different parts of the problem become more important. For example, AI-based scoring of fraud based on consolidated data, giving banks back scores based on the totality of the data of the country instead of banks building those models just on their own data. Interfaces with law enforcement, how do you bundle cases together, because a lot of these scam cases are very small, so they might not go to prosecution, but maybe if you can find a way, well, you can find a way to bundle cases together and then make it easier for law enforcement and prosecutors to use this data. Is one. Supervisory reporting, I think it's just endless confirmation of payee. There's loads of different technologies that we must use to counter this problem, and no single solution is the whole answer.
Yes, I think that's also a very good point, because when we discussed that what scammers, they take leverage of the interconnectedness of the payment system and institutions, right? And now this is the time for firms who provide the solutions for the anti-fraud and anti-scam initiative to also work together and combine their solutions into one single solution that can be more powerful. So I will go to Wei Ying now. Maybe very quickly, Wei Ying, if you can describe to us where does AI in this case make the greatest difference?
For me, I think that AI makes the greatest difference in triage accuracy, but the impact can be multiplied if we actually combine the linguistic inclusion and also the speed of escalation. So as what Kimo has mentioned, like not everyone actually will come forward and file the report where they got scammed. So it could be that the language they don't understand, or it could be because of digital literacy. So we want to make sure that everyone is included. I mean, everyone can actually file a scam report. And regardless of what language and what age, like for example, in Malaysia, I didn't face the scam myself. My cousin, 18 years old, faced the scam. So yeah, he was scammed. And the problem is that he doesn't dare to actually comes out and report the scam because he don't really speak fluent English. So with the system, with AI included, they can actually use the local language to actually file the scam. And then it then helps to increase the number of valid complete reports. So it will be giving the regulators a more comprehensive and national view of the fraud trend. So and then in terms of triage accuracy, I think it helps to ensure that the reports are actually being classified and also routed correctly. So we know that in national scale, it could be very overwhelming on the volume of reports that we receive. So instead of having the agents to manually look through all the reports, so the automation process can help to actually reduce the time. So they can help to actually auto-categorize the scam type, generates the summarization or reports, and then helps to redirect to the correct agencies when they file the report. So this will also help to reduce the time of the processing and to actually improve the fund recovery rates as well. And so that's the speed of escalation as well. So once they actually file the complaints, we directly connect to all the regulators or responsible banks, and then we can actually help to trace the money where it actually goes to, or freeze any transaction that's possible, so that it actually makes sure that the entire handoff is in real time, and it can be like from days of processing to be reduced into minutes. So yeah, so basically that's the three things that will help the whole processing to be actually much more optimized and reduce the number of cases as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Wei Ying, for sharing that. Now, I think as we are approaching the final part of the session, we would like to ask speakers to look into the future. I will start with you, Curtis. How do you envision collaboration evolving between fintech innovators and public institutions to sustain this momentum?
Yeah, well, first of all, it starts with legislation. So, right, everyone wants to stop scams. Every government wants to fight this in some way, weaponize AI on behalf of consumers. So we see a lot of laws coming into place that are centralizing the anti-scam functions. It includes police, central banks, consumer protection authorities. Off of that legislation, we're able to put in place integrated systems like what Proto and FNA are working on here to really quickly try to connect the report into the freezing of funds. FNA has done great work in Malaysia with the National Fraud Portal. I think 20% of funds are being recovered with a manual system. Adding AI onto that has tremendous promise. So that's what I'd look forward to in the next 12 months, is having a couple other anti-scam centers with integrated government systems actually protecting consumers and recovering more funds.
Yes, thank you, Curtis. Kimo, what's next for this model? Do you feel any other initiative that might also come through in the future?
I think the future is already in progress. A lot of countries are already setting up these national anti-scam utilities or fraud operations centers, or however you call them. But the idea is to move a little bit away from, let's say, if you're a regulator, from compliance into infrastructure. So you're providing infrastructure for the industry to operate on. And I think that's actually quite a big change because then you're building technology systems and operational systems for everyone to collaborate to counter frauds. You're moving from, let's say, an observer seat as a regulator or a central bank and asking to comply with the regulations to a proactive stance. And I think this is what I'm hearing mostly, is that, okay, we need to become more proactive with this, because the problem is that if you don't become proactive, then it metastasizes and people lose trust in digital commerce and payments, and that has very severe consequences for the economy. So moving to this from compliance to infrastructure, I think, is one big trend that is happening and taking place. Next year, we'll probably see quite a few anti-scam centers set up. And once those get their operations running successfully, I think we'll start seeing them being connected regionally, because there are special corridors that criminals use to transfer funds. And so they will probably start collaborating first. We're writing a paper with Buna on how these regional payment system operators could play a role in the cross-border fraud. Buna is the Arabic or sort of pan-Arabic instant payment system, or payment system in general. And then getting connected cross-border, I think need to tie it more with crypto exchanges to stop the transitioning of the funds into crypto. I think everyone will, once they set up this system, they'll find, okay, what is the next important thing that will provide the highest value, and in a way go with that. So we don't exactly know how the future look like, but maybe those are sort of larger trends that I mentioned.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing as well. You touched upon about the potentially cross-border type of technology or regional. I think that would be very important given how interconnected as well different payment system, not only inside as a national level, but also cross-border or regionally, right? So this is quite a very important point on that one. So we have quite a number of questions. I will just maybe like pick one, the one that maybe Wei Ying can answer very quickly here. So there is a question in particular on the Proto incident reporting platform. Are there safeguards to avoid malicious reporting or genuine numbers, contacts, and accounts? Maybe very quickly, 1 minute, Wei Ying, if you can cover that.
So basically what we need to know is all the historical reportings that we have been, that the authorities has been receiving, and we can use that to actually train the AI system to automatically categorize or recognize whether those scam reports are the real scam reports, especially if the entities that are being reported are actually non-entities, or the contact numbers that they are actually providing is not valid contact numbers. So all of this can be actually pre-processed in the AI agents or the chatbot before it's being filed or being reported to the agencies.
Yes, thank you very much, Wei Ying. Apologize for the participants who have asked questions, but for sure we will try to answer after this broadcast, right? I'm now going to close this broadcast. So thank you to today's speakers, Wei Ying, Curtis, and Kimo, for your valuable perspectives, and to everyone who joined us and contributed questions. So next week, everyone, our regular moderator, not me, unfortunately, but Dr. Carlos Leon will return alongside CLS to address audience-submitted questions on the future of settlement efficiency and liquidity management in wholesale FX. In November, we will look at Article 75 and its implication for money trail sharing and privacy. If you would like to continue the discussion or share feedback, please use the post-session survey or connect with today's speaker via the links in chat. Thanks again for joining. We will share the recording and materials soon. And finally, best of luck to all fellow G20 TechSprint finalists. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.